All right, we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Social Kick. Really excited to have my three friends on and a new friend we're going to meet, Glenn Mills. But first of all, let me do a quick reminder of who's who. We got Dr. John Mullen. John is over there on the top left of the screen. He is a physical therapist. He has a clinic called CORE. He's worked with some of the world's most elite athletes in swimming and triathlon. And he is a former swimmer at Purdue. Then we got Justin in the middle there. Justin is a strength and conditioning coach. He is also a division swimmer at NCAA, a 200 breaststroker, 200 butterfly from Puget Sound, and swam at Pasa. Then down is Brian Lundquist. We got Brian. Not 200 fly?
Not a 200 breaststroker. 200 flyer, not a 200
fly, not 200 breast. You're getting him and Glenn mixed up. They do look alike. What can I say?
No, all right. It's my play to my game coming up. You'll see, Justin. I got some info.
Okay. All right.
And then we got a Lundquist here. Lundquist tends to bring back a little bit nightmares for our friend Glenn Mills here, but it's Brian Lundquist.
Not related.
Brian, a former world record holder, a former American record holder, just got broken by Caleb, just last year, a year or two ago. NCAA champion, now a triathlete, a master swimmer, and potentially likes to cycle and run pretty well. He does, actually. Myself, I'm Luke Pattinson. I swam for Trinidad and Tobago. I swam in college in Montreal, Canada, and I'm friends with these folks. And I'm lucky and happy to have Glenn on with us. 3 reasons. 1, first time somebody older than me on this show. So who knows more about the sport than I do by far. Second of all, another video nerd. Man knows video like nobody's business. And we've only had swimmers on the show. It's our first breaststroker.
Oh.
Again, welcome.
Thanks, Luke. Great to be here.
And so I'm going to start off with just what are we drinking. It's a kind of a tradition on the show, so I'm going to go around asking you guys what you're drinking, and then dive into a quick little show game. So, John, what are you drinking?
Yep, like we've been talking about, shelter in place, so not able to get to the store too much. I'm just having a Sierra Nevada hazy little thing IPA. Oh, there we go. Da-da-da.
Nice. Justin, what you got?
Well, I still have a few of my 21st Amendments. The El Soli. My dad's been drinking a few. It was his birthday yesterday, so he definitely enjoys himself on a few of these. So, yeah, that's what I'm drinking today.
Nice.
21st Amendment. I got to start. The Brew Free or Die is my favorite camping beer. They also make it in a blood orange. That one's good, too. But today I'm drinking the Founders All Day IPA. Kind of like a session IPA. Fan of that one.
And Glenn, you got anything on you? Yeah, what do you got?
Conor McGregor, Proper 12. So
Nice.
some whiskey, but I like Conor McGregor. So why not support him, right?
How is it?
It's good. It's inexpensive and it tastes pretty good. So
Will he ever fight Habib again, Glenn?
Who knows? I'm afraid for him to come back, but because I like his legacy was okay for a while, but he's fun to watch. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, he's a wily one.
Yeah.
How about you, Luke? What are you drinking?
Well, I felt some peer pressure last week because I was drinking the same beer over and over again. So I actually picked up a new beer, and I got a beer bottle, hazy IPA again, tall one, and it's good. It's a nice little small brewery. So love this. So I'm going to dive into a quick little game. We've got a game to begin the show and a game to end the show. This is a little icebreaker right now. It's a game where I ask questions about some photographs I found of each of you. And just so background, before I dive into a big introduction on Glenn Mills, he is foremost a breaststroker and a world leader in swimming technique. So the questions around his photos are going to revolve around those 2 categories, all right? All right, you ready? The first one is going to be, I'm going to, if you're going to make fun of somebody, you got to make fun of yourself. Share the screen. So, Glenn, what do you think about the technique?
I love it.
Something that streamlined. Come on.
Look at those hands together locked. That's beautiful.
I know. Streamline could be like this.
So here's the bad news. I don't think that's me.
No, that's me.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good. Yeah.
No. I got you. Don't worry. You're coming.
I just saw the red hair and I thought, oh my gosh. No, I love the way that the hands are locked, the eyes are down. there might be a little bit of rough landing, but overall, I think this is fantastic, and someone's having a lot of fun.
Luke, why are you? Luke, why are you so? Luke, why are you so vertical?
It's the angle of the camera.
Oh, okay. I was like, is he jumping straight up, or what's going on here?
So when I took this picture, Glenn had just made his first Olympic team in 1980. So heads up. That's why I thought I would picture out. So little notice there. All right, next one. It's going to be this. Let's see if this switches. And switch that over.
Brian, where's your music? Let's hear it. Do, 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 do.
Sorry, this is not working as well as last week. Yeah, I'm in this. All right, here we go. Go ahead, John.
God.
Justin, what's going on here? You told me you weren't a breaststroker. Glenn, what do you think of this technique? That's Justin.
I mean, I think it's all in the look on the face. Is that I like the hand position. Let's see where the elbows go, but the look on the face looks like someone's not enjoying themselves. So I think that's the.
I think you pull that kick down a little more.
Yeah.
Is that one of those goggle cap things from the old days?
Exactly. Let's bring those back.
Yeah, are you crying there, Justin?
Oh, I was in pain. That was my freshman year swimming the 400 IM. I don't know if that's in the morning or at night, but this is when I did not figure out breaststroke my senior year.
Well, that's my whole career.
All right, I got the next victim. It's going to be Dr. John Mullen. He writes books and books on technique.
Oh,
so
great.
I say, you know what? I'm not going to embarrass him doing technique. I'm just going to find this. Where's this at? What's this on here?
I have no idea where that even is. Looks like some pool deck. I wish I could identify where that was. But yeah.
John,
what can I say?
Do you have frosted tips?
You know, I think our pool that we grew up in just naturally frosted your tips. If you got beyond maybe 2 inches, it turned blonde, and then it eventually just fell out. I don't think I got a haircut in high school for like 3 years because my hair just naturally kept falling out once it hit a certain length.
Oh, preach, man. Yeah, they got to be careful letting you stay out in the sun that long.
Oh, I know, exactly. It definitely turned a different shade.
Little inside joke between like the people that work with John. That's how John sits at his desk.
Hey, don't give the physical therapist secrets away. I always have perfect posture. We all know that, right?
Shirtless?
Most definitely.
Come on now.
So the theme is breaststroke. So we got Glenn Mills on. So I thought this would be an interesting one. I was searching for Brian Lundquist. I found this. But we'll move on from this for now. And I'm sure Brian Lundquist has seen many of those jokes. And come on to this. Brian, what happens in this picture? Go ahead, John, and share. What's going on here? You look ripped, man. You jacked.
Wow.
Glenn, where's this? Glenn, Glenn goes. Tell me.
Well, let's see. It's got to be 08.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
The laser's giving it away, right?
Yeah. The suit gives it away. So
08 short course worlds at Lochte in his days.
And what just happened? You guys just got a world record, yeah?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. A world record 400 free relay short course. That was a wild moment. But,
yeah.
Weird too. Short meters and man, I gotta tell you, the guy on the right though, he was lighting the world on fire at that meet and swimming 3 races a session, and it's just if he didn't have any recovery time, would sit in the ready room on his ankles and just swing his arms around and go out and break another world record. That was crazy. That was fun to see him in his prime up close.
Yeah. Incredible.
Definitely. He was an amazing swimmer, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Still is, right?
Yeah, still is.
Is Ryan going to make the next team?
Man,
Glenn, let's get your view. First question.
So this is being as political as possible. I remember, in 2007, somebody asked me, is Michael going to win 8 gold medals? And me saying, look, there's too much specialization. nobody can just go in there and win everything. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. And I've never questioned an athlete again the rest of my life. So who knows? I mean, Ryan, I wrote an article about Ryan years ago about how watching him at meets, watching him interact with people, I think he's probably one of the nicest guys and the most genuine people that I've ever seen in swimming. And I think he gets a bad rap. So I think if he makes it, a lot of people are going to be really happy.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, that was my read on some time spent with Ryan as well. So I got to know him a little bit, just crossing paths at some Florida meets. And then, of course, swimming at that meet with him. And, man, I mean, I even went down to the Florida-Georgia game. I grew up in Atlanta, and I was an Auburn fan, but my dad went to Florida. So I used to go down I went to Florida-Georgia and hung out in Jacksonville with Ryan and Rex Tullius and some guys in their friend group. And, man, he was the nicest guy to me. I didn't have a bad thing to say about him, so I agree. And I like to focus on, the interactions that I have personally. But, yeah, still a physical specimen. It was really fun to watch him.
Yeah, definitely. I'll never forget him. And I think this is where Glenn and I met for the first time at one of the international meets, and Ryan staying hours afterwards signing autographs for kids. I mean, him and Missy stick out for the two that were there for hours after the races, whether they swam well or not, signing everyone's autograph. And I think that was the first time we met, Glenn. I'll never forget your business cards. On the back of everyone, you had a GoSwim video picture. I love those business cards.
Those things, those were Moo cards, some of the original Moo cards. And I remember I'd set them out on tables, and people would come by, look at them, and they go, can I have one of these? I'd be like, okay, just one though. So those were great.
All right, I got one more picture to go, and it's this guy. Glenn Mills. What's going on here?
So if I see that right, it looks like the other swimmer is Greg Higginson, and
John
it is Moffitt. Okay.
Yes, Moffitt.
All right. Well, then there we are. So that's me. Okay. This is how old these pictures are. They don't age well, so it's hard to tell. So John and I just just got first and second Olympic trials in 1980. John had a great first one.
That's not this one.
Oh, that's not this one?
No, that's not this one. This is 1983.
This is 83? Let me tell you something. I have never seen the race. I have have one picture from the race. I have never seen it. So, John and I have been friends till this day. And so we respected each other the entire way through. And so if I beat him, I thanked him usually, because I think he was much better than I was, and so he let me win for some reason, just to throw me a bone. But so John and I have always been very close, even when we were competitors. So tons of respect. So if one of us beat the other guy, the first thing we do is go over and congratulate him, and make sure everybody's cool and okay. But this is a crazy thing. I've never seen the race from '83, so I can't remember everything that happened after it.
So Glenn, you set me up well for a little story I want to tell about your 88 to 84 swimming career. And so this is near the end. This is the 83 NCAA Championship, where you won the 200-meter breaststroke at the newly minted IUPUI pool. It just opened in July, and you guys won the first meets there. And they were all worried that it was going to be a good facility or not. They had no idea if it was going to be a good facility. And this is the first big meet you guys there, and you out-touched John in this. So let me go back to 1980, because I think because John was a freshman at Stanford when you were a junior at Alabama in 1983. And it was quite an interesting, because you guys have been on a world championship team, and you were both Olympians. But let me go back to 1980 and give the audience a little history about you, because everybody knows you and what happened from 2002 onwards with GoSwim TV. But not many people understand what really happened in I'm going to stop screen sharing right now. What really happened in 1980, and especially review to 1980, 1984. So I'm just going to recap it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, yeah?
Okay.
In 1988, in July, at the end of July, you guys went down to Irvine, and you had your U.S. Nationals and Olympic trials. And you were, I think, second in prelims. You went 220, and you qualified for finals. And that night, you went 2:18.78 to out-touch John Moffitt, who went 2:18.79. So 1/100th of a second. I think in 2012, the article was written about the closest 200-meter breaststroke in trials history when they were talking about Shantou. So unbelievable race how you came back then. And that was 3 days after the Olympic final. The Olympic final was on July 26th, and the winning time was the Russian, and the Russian went 2:17. So the time that you went to win trials, and you knew what those times would have placed fourth at and you know, maybe in the heat of the moment you would have medaled. So 3 days after in Irvine, you made the Olympic team. You and John Muffet. And you were 18 and John was 16. How old was he? Probably 16?
Yep. 16, yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you know, then they went to the Olympics. A bunch of countries like Australia and Great Britain went to the Olympic flag. And my first question when I finish this, I want to ask about that period. I want to talk about the Olympic postponement now and the kind of mindset you guys went through. Because I didn't realize at the time that you knew you were not going to the Olympics when you made the team. So I want to talk about that when we finish, okay? 1981, you know, so you went to Alabama after those trials. You were an Olympian. You started for Alabama under legendary coach Don Gambril. 81, you went to NCs, and we have a race, which we're going to show in a bit, of you coming, what do you come in NCs? You 159, you came fourth of that. Okay, Steve Lundquist broke the American record and Inspire record, and you were in lane 2. And that video is on YouTube. You can look it up. It's great. It's great to see Lundquist because Lundquist had just debuted with the new stroke. You know, elbows in front, they don't tuck the elbows in, and that just blew the American record in that. So I love to talk about that. That's a huge story, and what your stroke was like. 1982, you made a world championship team, so you made another major team. And that was your time to be able to race Olympic champion. So you got to race Olympic champion. You got to race a young Adrian Morehouse. Those who don't know, Morehouse won 200 in Seoul. You got to race a young, these guys didn't know this name until now, Victor Davis, right? A legend from, I saw him in Canada. I mean, I went to the bar Annie's where he unfortunately got, you know, I knew Victor Davis was a legend. So you got to race Victor Davis. You raced in that race. You came 6th. You're in lane 6, and you came 6th in the World Championship final, but 2:19.8. You beat a young Morehouse, though. Morehouse got beat by you. Victor Davis set the world record, 2:14.7. Muffet got a bronze in that. Yep. So Muffet got his World Championship bronze. Unbelievable race. That must have been a fantastic final. I'd love to talk about that. What that was like to finally race the Russian who got beat, who won the trial, the medal you didn't get to swim against. And get to beat and get to race Davis and race Morehouse. Unbelievable. And then the next year, 1983, you're a junior at Alabama. And then what happens? You go to this new facility and you beat Muffet again and you win NCAA's. Is it NCAA Championship? What time did you go in that?
1:58.3. But that race was the first time all 6 finalists were under 2 minutes. It had never been done before. So it was a good race.
To realize what that meant, the American record in 2 years earlier was a 1:59. So all 6 finalists had broken the American record that was just set a couple of years earlier. So that was a fantastic race. I wish I could see a video of that. But it was a very fast pool, and I guess the pool kind of turned out to be okay. Then the next year, you retired. You retired at age 22 because you went to the Olympic trials. The Olympics were in LA. And you went to the Olympic trials and you went 2:18.28 and you came 4th in trials. How many people made the Olympic team in 1984 in the finals? 2? Not 3?
No, only 2. That was the first time they only took 2.
Yes. Okay. Because in 1980 they took 3.
Yeah. So yeah, it was. I mean, all correct. You know, the 81 was if you look at that race in 81, there's a very interesting point about it. If you see it, I haven't seen that race either. You'll notice that lane 3 and lane 5, or lane 3 and lane 6 are empty. And so what they did that year was they decided that in order to make the swims faster, everybody had an edge lane. And so you only got turbulence from one side. So lane 1 was Greg Higginson from Alabama, my training partner. I was in lane 2. Lane 3 was Steve Lundquist, and lane 4 was Bill Barrett, or I'm sorry, 4 and 5, Lundquist and Barrett, and then it was Gary Fakes and Nick Nevitt. And when you looked at it, we all raced the guy we were next to. And so Bill and Steve got first and second. Higo and I got third and fourth, and Gary and Nick got fifth and sixth. And so, not saying that we could have caught Steve and Bill, but the empty lane was something that really messed everybody up, and they never did it again. So Steve had it was one of those things. I came in, and at this point in time, there were literally probably, 6 guys in the world that were under 2 minutes. And I look up at the board and I see a freshman. I see 159. So I was happy to go under 2 minutes. I see fourth place, pretty decent. And then I see Steve halfway down the pool celebrating. I'm like, how did he get so far away so fast? And then I look back at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, the sport has changed. So
see, there you in lane 2 at the top. So Glenn's in lane 2 at the top. Yeah. Steve is there about to turn at the 100. This is the 100 turn. So you want to talk about this race? We're turning at the 100. Steve's about to turn in a 55, and you're at the top.
Yeah, I never saw anybody except Higo, my training partner. So there we are, the first 2 lanes, and we're just racing each other. And Bill Barrett was my training partner back in Cincinnati, so we've known each other. We trained together back there as well. Never saw Bill, never saw Steve, didn't see anybody except Greg.
So I swam in a conference meet. They did this at SEC's in 2006 at Tennessee. And I think, as a lot of conference meets go, they only rotate them to certain fast pools, but they decided to do it at Tennessee's old pool, and which is probably a pool that you swam in, I bet. And
I swam in, yeah.
It was the last big meet that they did there, but they did this too, and it was weird. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, it was the only meet I ever swam in that was like that. It was very strange.
But
I think.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's valid for, say, 50 free, 100 free, but for a 200 breast and some of the other events, it's just there's no racing. You don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Lundqvist talks right after this race in his interview about the fact that he changed his stroke, and that was the difference between him and Bill Barrett. You want to talk about his stroke? Were you doing that stroke right now? Talk about that. What was stroke evolving back then?
Well, Steve was so powerful. Bill was so powerful. I had to have, the only shot I had of beating Steve Lundqvist was long course 200 breast. And so if you look at our 2 careers, I beat Steve once short course. Steve beat me once long course. Okay, but he was incredibly powerful, incredibly fast, and so I would just have to wait for him to die, and then I could go past him. So it was just a waiting game. So the strokes were different. Mine, again, very traditional. The rules were different. If people don't know that our head wasn't allowed to go underwater. That's right. So if you look at those swims, there's no underwater dolphin kicks. Your head's not allowed to go underwater. So everything we teach swimmers today, we were not allowed to do back then. And I think it makes the times, at least respectable, if nothing else. But we took one for the team, for all swimmers. We showed people how not to do things. But Steve, again, the more powerful you are, the more you can use the upper body, and Steve was just a beast. So I was more of a kicker, and so I went from the back half much better than Steve did. But there's no denying one of the greatest breaststrokers in history. And you talked about Victor. Victor and I used to race as kids up in Etobicoke. I grew up in Cleveland, and so I would go to the Canada Cups up in Etobicoke, and Victor and I used to race, and I knew Cliff Barry. And so we got to know each other all really young, and racing Victor for a few years, and then both of us ended up in finals of world championships, and he had a great race. And in fact, my claim to fame, in no matter anything else, I am named in the Victor Davis movie. So when they have the movie, if you watch that, there he is at finals, where his first world record at Guayaquil, Ecuador, and they go down the list of swimmers, and they say lane 6, Mills, USA, and there's a guy that actually takes his towel off. I want that guy's IMBD. I want to see who played me in that movie. But he was in there for 2 seconds.
Victor Davis, these guys know he was a bad ass. He was one of the toughest guys. I swam for his club. I swam for Point Claire in the West Island of Montreal. So he's a legend. He's the kind of guy who would rip the blocks off when he did a start. He was so powerful. He came and just dominated. And that Guayaquil, which I've been to Guayaquil, a crazy town in Ecuador. That Guayaquil meet, he went 2:14 as how old was he? He was 18-year-old. He was a young, and then in the Olympics 2 years later, he went 2:13. He dominated. Yeah. But
he's
Glenn,
just phenomenal swimmer, great swimmer.
Take us back to 1980 because it's pretty, everybody's comparing the boycotts of 1980 to the postponement of Tokyo 2020. And we've spoken to George Bovell, Milo Kavik, Margot, all these swimmers about how they would approach it and what their mindset was like, and people related a lot to it. Right now, Brian, John, and I swim with Bob Jackson. He's a Olympian on your team in 1980. I haven't seen Bob since the COVID shelter at home. But I was dying to speak to Bob about what he was thinking back then compared to now. I asked you, so the U.S. made a decision to boycott the games. They gave a deadline to the IOC to change the games to possibly swim somewhere else. Otherwise, they would boycott, and Russia had to withdraw from Afghanistan. And all this went on between the period of like January to like May or something, right? So there you are, an athlete, training, hoping, watching the politics, hoping he's going to go. And then a decision is made, and just talk to me what your mindset was like. How hard was the train? What did you feel on deck? What was it like watching the Olympic final, seeing 2:17 win, etc.? Talk about that. It's really interesting.
So, it really all started very close to the miracle. So there we all training, and we're up watching the Winter Olympics, and the hockey team wins, and we go into practice the next day, and my coach, Denny Persley and Frank Bush, said, do you see the impact you can have on the country? Blah, blah, blah. Here's 12,000 meters in the breaststroke lane. Let's go. I mean, they just used it as a way to beat, what out of us. And so the training was just brutal. And so it was one of those things that it was, first of all, let's continue to focus. Let's get inspired. Let's keep going. And if you think about our training schedule, I would get up at 4:30 in the morning. I would be on deck at 4:45. I lived really close to the pool. And we'd start practice at 5. It was 2.5 hours in the morning, and the afternoons alternated between 2 hours and 45 minutes and 3 hours. There were 12 practices a week, 6 days a week, and we had dry land.
Wow.
So our coaches, in a way, by virtue of suffering and torture, insulated us from the news. And I'll give you an example. I went to Finneytown High School, and if you go back and look at the history of Finneytown High School, what you're going to see is that the Who concert that took place in Cincinnati in 1979 or 1980, where there were a number of students killed because it was festival seating, and the stadium at Cincinnati had raised walkways around. And so the band started to practice. They were doing a sound check, and people thought the band had started, and they all started rushing the gate, and they crushed people to death. There were 4 people in my school that were killed.
Wow.
I didn't know it until I showed up at school, because I was asleep at evening. After evening practice, I went to sleep. The concert happened. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 in the morning. I go straight to the pool. None of us knew what was going on outside.
Mm-hmm.
And our coaches, so I didn't even know my classmates were killed. I finally realized that my girlfriend wasn't in school that day. And I'm wondering if she went to the concert, and then realized that one of her gymnastics teammates was one of the kids that was killed. So she stayed home. So Roger Daltrey actually went to the school last year, and to revisit that whole thing. So from that standpoint, we were really insulated from what was going on. Mm-hmm. And then Denny and Frank basically were just saying, stick to the plan, stick to the course. We're gonna break more world records. We're gonna win more events. We're gonna win as a team. And so we knew something was going on, but to be honest with you, they kept us very focused. Okay. Now, we get to the meet, and I had just won indoor seniors for the first time. I just broke the national high school record, and so everything's going great, right? And we get to the meet, and I just remember prelims of that meet, and you could feel that it was down. And I swam bad in prelims, and I went off to the side, and I was sulking. And Denny, man, he ripped me up one side, down the other. It's just about being a leader, about representing, the other people looking to you. And so by the time I got the finals of that race, I was just trying to make sure that I represented my team well. And it took me about 125 yards or meters to kind of pull things together. I mean, if you look at my splits in that race, it was 108, 109.
Yeah.
So very, very good on the back end. And I think I had a lot left in me. I went 218 flat at indoors, and so went almost a full second faster than that at indoors, and then 218.7. But the one thing I'll never say publicly is what medal I would have gotten, because it's not the athlete's fault who went that they got the medals. And so for me to say, oh, I think I could have gotten silver or bronze, that just takes stuff away from them. They got the medal, they earned it, they won it, and it's theirs. So we have other things to deal with. So, because I've been asked 1,000 times, what place would you have gotten? I got the place I got, 0. So it is what it is.
But Glenn, you what you just said, I think alludes to how your career in swimming has progressed since 1980 to this very day. And I alluded today in a social media thing I did. You had a lot of challenges as an athlete yourself, as an elite athlete. You would have made the Olympic team. You didn't get to go. In 1982, you came 6th. So you made the finals of World Championships, and on the opportunity redemption, you came 6th. Maybe that was great, but you did swim a time that was slower than you did 2 years earlier, a second slower.
Right.
So you must have been disappointed. There's no doubt.
Right.
In 1983, you go and then you get redemption, and you're champion, and you beat your good friend and colleague Moffat. Then 84, he's like, now's my time. I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna swim for my home audience, and I'm gonna go and make the Olympics in 84 at trials. And you come 4th, and you don't swim that much faster. You 218.2, and so you know what? I'm done. I'm age 22. I'm done. Talk to me about that. About how you felt like that. We started off this podcast 8 months ago, all talking about what was our last race. Did we know it was our last race? Why was it our last race? Did we have regrets? I was age 24. You're age 22. Talk about your last race. Talk about that race. Your feelings watching. Victor Davis go 2:13 in the finals in LA a couple of weeks later. Talk about that.
So you never know. Well, in certain situations, and it really struck me years later. I remember I was coaching in Maryland, and I was at a conference meet, watching a conference meet. And I watched a relay, and there was the way that you'd finish at Maryland. There was a warm down pool straight across behind the blocks. And I remember watching 2 swimmers at the end. One had been at the beginning of the relay or one, maybe an event before. And it was the last relay of the meet. And I remember the one that was competing sitting on the side like this, and the one that was in the warm down pool sitting on the side like this. They were looking at each other, and they knew that was it.
Yeah.
Their careers were done. And it was a very moving sort of thing. When I finished, when I got 4th at trials, I never thought that was my last meet. You never plan that, okay, well, this is it, because you don't expect to lose. You go into these races, you just plan, you can only plan for success. So I was totally lost afterwards. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I went back the next week and I started training again. I was going to go to seniors, and we did a set. I remember we did a set of 450s, and Jay Fitzgerald was my coach at this point. And we did a set of 450s all out from the blocks on 3 minutes, and all 4 of them were all out. And I went to Jay. I said, I'm not going them all out. I'll descend. I'm just not doing it. So
you lost it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it was, but the last 50 I did was the first time in my entire career I broke 30 seconds for a 50 breast long course. I touched the wall, and we had electronic timing set up at Cincinnati every workout. Okay, I don't know how the thing survived, but it's old school stuff. You'd see those little dots come on, and you go, oh, geez, here we go. So you knew you were going to have to get timed. So I remember looking up, I saw 29th, it's 29.8 or something, and I just thought to myself, I missed my taper. I got out of the pool and I retired from swimming that day because I didn't want to question. I would go 216 a couple weeks later or a month later and say I did it all wrong, because Jay and I went into it thinking we did everything right. So there is an unknown about whether I could have or couldn't have. But the thing is that I left the career knowing that I did everything possible I could have, and I didn't want any questions about it. And so actually there were more meets, but you won't know about them because I got kicked out of the sport of swimming for doing them. And it is something I think that's important to talk about. There were 10 of us that got phone calls, I think in September or October of 1984. Craig Beardsley, Chris Rowe, Kyle Miller from Florida, Kathy Tribal, Joan Pennington, just some great names. So we got a phone call, and back then you could tell it was from the other side of the world.
Yeah.
It was from South Africa, and South Africa had called. They wanted to have people that were done with their swimming career to come over and compete with their national team around the country.
That's right.
And so one of my heroes and coaches was Jonty Skinner.
Yeah.
So I knew that Jonty, I've been through the 49.44 thing. I was at that meet because my brother swam with Jonty.
Yeah.
And so being part of the boycott, like many of us were, we said, we're going to go support the athletes. So we flew over, we swam 4 meets in 5 days, all over Port Elizabeth, Cape Town, Durban, and I'm trying to remember the last one. But anyway, we toured the country with the South African national team, made great friends with them till this day. And 2 weeks later, when we got home, we got a letter from USA Swimming saying you're kicked out of the sport for 2 years. And so, but we knew we were done anyway. You couldn't earn any money back then. What we did before we went over was we made sure they arranged that we did clinics for Black children, so that we had documentation showing that we were not supporting apartheid, we were supporting athletes. And we went out into these villages, and we do clinics for these little Black children, again, just to support the sport. And we didn't want to be pawns of anybody else's. So that was the way I ended my career. And it was probably the greatest way to end my career that I could imagine. But I don't know what the times were. We just went, had a good time, and made a lot of friends.
And Glenn, you weren't the only sport discipline doing that at the time. There was a very famous cricketers that were doing that back then, and even synchronized swimming was doing that. We swim with a Hall of Fame synchronized swimmer at the time. Her name was Teresa Anderson. It's now Terry Watts, and Terry talks about her time in South Africa and how fulfilling it was giving back to the world, the community. So it's an important story to tell, and from your point of view. And I want to make a little transition to what's remarkable to me is that what you did at age 22 and how your competing career ended. And it seems like you took a hiatus from swimming until the 90s when you started back at Masters, in your mid 30s. And I seen your times. I seen your 222, 200 breaststroke short course meters. We know what's going on, okay? And we can relate. You still.
I think I was 46 when I did that.
Yeah, that's my age almost. So yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah. Okay, but you had a tough time in swimming. You came so close, but you had happiness, and you still loved the sport and give the sport so much so you say, you know what? I'm gonna pick up a camera, and Dave Deniston's my friend. I'm going to film Dave Denison doing a superb 100-meter breaststroke, and I want to show the world. I'm going to talk to the world about Dave's 100-meter breaststroke and analyze it. And 1,800 downloads a day. You talk about thousands of episodes. You decided I'm going to do GoSwim, and that's how we know you. I have your DVDs. I watch your videos. I look at your before I go to masters practice. I look at your videos on the phone, and it's in 1 minute. I see Fran Crippen talk about a beautiful stroke. I see Brendan Hansen. I see, Schoolman's start. And you've got awards from USA Swimming. You've given back to this team. You've given so much to this sport. And that's unbelievable. And kudos to you. And talk about GoSwim TV. Guys, you want to add anything to that?
Well, actually, I wanted to take it, if I could interject, I want to take it one step back. So what happened between end of swimming career and GoSwim?
Yeah, here we go.
So the first thing I did when I got out of swimming was I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to have a regular life. I became a marketing director for a manufacturing company. And then I started doing clinics for local kids in Cleveland.
Cool.
And I started people would say, will you come talk to our team? How much does it cost? And I said, it doesn't cost anything. I can't believe people want me to talk to them. And so I mean, I'll try to make this as quick as possible. I was doing something somewhere, and somebody said, will you come to Galion, Ohio, and do a clinic for us? And I said, sure. And they said, what's it cost? I said, well, you just got to give me gas money to get there. My graduation present from college was a 1978 anniversary edition Corvette. We had it in our family for 7 years. Okay. So I wanted money for gas to drive the vet down to Galion, Ohio. So I go down a day early. I talk to the coach. We do a clinic the next morning, and I say to this family, how do I get back to the highway to get back to Cleveland? They said, well, just follow us. There's a shortcut through these cornfields. So long story short, I get T-boned by a drunk driver at an intersection in the Corvette. The Corvette's totaled. Everything's gone, all because of a free clinic that I did in Galion, Ohio. And I remember that this is before cell phones. This is before, really anything. It took the cops about a half hour to get there. The police officers about a half hour to get there because it was in the middle of nowhere. And I remember finally getting to a phone and calling my dad. And he knew I was overdue getting home. And he picks up the phone and I said, hey, and he says, are you okay?
Mm.
And he said, okay, then what happened? I said, well, the car is gone. It's totaled. And, so there's always been perspective in my life from that standpoint. I think the thing that it's important to understand, and I don't want to get too deep about this, but when I was 14 years old, my brother, my middle brother, had some knee pain, and long story short, he had bone cancer in his right leg. He had his right leg amputated. And so my oldest brother had won the Ohio High School State Championship when I was in 7th grade. And I thought that was the biggest thing in the world. So what I wanted to do was I went to Kyle, my brother that lost his leg. And I said, okay, obviously you can't swim breaststroke anymore. I will win the Ohio High School State Championship for you. And I think his response was he patted me on the head and he said, thanks, chubby, because I was a little fatter back then. So about a year and a half later, Kyle died. And Kyle died on a Thursday. And on Friday, the pool that I swam in, it was a 6-lane high school pool. And it would go, lane 1 was the slowest and lane 6 was the fastest. And I swam in lane 5. So the day after Kyle died, I went back to the pool and I stood behind lane 6 and nobody said anything. And I would go to the pool every day and try to induce as much pain as possible to get my emotions out. And so I used swimming as my therapy. So the pain was what got me through everything. So when we look 4 years later, when I'm a senior in high school, and my best time is 57.8, the national record's 56.3. I talked Denny and Frank into let me rest for 1 week. I went 59 something the week before at the district meet. They give me 1 week rest, and I go to the meet and I go 55.4. I win the race by 3.5 seconds. The record stood for 20 years till an Auburn guy, Mark Gangloff, broke it, a double Olympian. But still a great friend. And Mark almost got it a couple years, and I would write him letters, and but it stood for 20 years. And then what came after that was senior nationals indoors, and I won that. And then a couple months later was Olympic trials. So the boycott, my successes, my failures, none of it matters. I mean, because I had been through something so much worse than that I learned perspective very young. And so one of the reasons I do what I do and what I've always tried to do is I know that, look, there's no reason I should have been as fast as I was unless I was inspired or motivated or had some inspiration to do it. If we can find a way to inspire young kids out there, someone's going to do something they never thought they could. And for me, it was just to teach technique, that you have to be better in order to reach your potential. And people will go back and forth, and so I figured the one thing that I could do to help people was to try to break things down or to share what other people do, so that we could learn something, so that if you were really into it, you could acquire the knowledge if you want it. And so that's kind of the impetus of what I do. It's the reason. It's much more than just wanting to film people. We really have always tried to help. But at the same time, when Rachel and I spent a year and a half driving around the country, we'd be invited to people's teams. And the last thing I would say to the kids before I left is that if your coach invited someone to come here to talk to you and they taught you something, so your coach respects us enough to invite us here, and then we talk about something, and if you choose from here on out not to use those things that you were taught, I have no pity for you. And that would be my message. It's just like, I'm going to teach you as much as I can. If you don't use it, I'm just going to go work with the people that will use it, because I can't waste my time. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a real message to kids as well, which means that you have to apply the things that you learn. So, that's kind of the real story of my life, and why I love swimming. I love what it can do for people. And again, I always hope that we contribute in a positive way. I'm
glad we're having a drink. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, definitely. Cheers to that. That was a great story.
Thanks,
Thanks for sharing that, Glenn. And as someone that, puts out a lot of swimming, biomechanics stuff and publications and all that, I'm intrigued to hear kind of your thoughts on how you want to present your stuff, because obviously there's elite athletes that you're filming, you're watching them do things, you have your opinions on what's going on in the water and what's best. How do you find that balance to present it in a non-biased way?
It's a great question, John, and I can totally see it especially from your perspective, and from mine as well. The one thing is that I've always tried as hard as possible to never give advice while filming somebody. I want to learn why they got to where they got, because there's not an infinite, but there's 7 billion different physiologies on the planet, and someone's going to find a way to figure that thing out. And so if I work with an Olympian, I want to find out why they came to this point. And it's probably one of the biggest things that bothers me is in social media. And I did an interview with Margaret Holzer last week, another Auburn swimmer. Okay. So, but Margaret enters in backstroke with her thumb first. And every time I post a video on social media about Margaret, then she and I had a good laugh about this. Everybody says she's horrible. If they don't know who she is, she shouldn't be swimming like that. She needs to fix that. She needs to do this. And I spend so much time saying, look, you have to learn from these people. You have to. No one has a more vested interest in how to go fast than an Olympic athlete who's trying to win a medal. They're going to search for every possible scenario to come up with that thing that makes them special. And then you look at who they swim for, and it's Eddie Reese and David Marsh and Dave Salo, and it's all these people that are like, oh, okay, they're pretty good coaches. So if it was so bad, why didn't they change it? And so that's the thing that frustrates me, is that we come into so many things with a position of, I know what I'm talking about and I don't care what anybody else says, or I wonder why they do that. And so I always try to stay as positive as possible and not tell someone that they're doing something wrong, but try to figure out why they're doing it, especially an Olympic athlete. All we can do is learn from them. And everybody's going to say, well, if they did this, they could have been faster. You know what? 95% of the time, they tried what you're talking about. It didn't work. So
speaking of technique, so you mentioned the thing that galvanized this fire in you that led to, this huge boom in your swimming career. And some of that was being a focus in technique. I'm curious about what it was that you focused on and did technically well in breaststroke, and how you've seen that stroke evolve.
Yeah, my stroke was very traditional, but I avoided resistance very well. I had a very good body line. When I look at videos in the past, it's strange how you can keep your head so high, but the body so flat. And I think a lot of it had to do, we learned technique through survival. And it's as strange as it sounds, by going 8,000 to 10,000 meters a day in the breaststroke lane, we had to make sure that our knees didn't hurt, that our elbows didn't hurt. And so every day you would change a little bit of the technique that you would use, so that you ended up building really well-rounded muscles all around. And I just did a video for the site about breaststroke knees and how we used to go, if this was our standard kick, then the next day we'd go a little wider, and the next day we'd go a little narrower. And then, John, you can say that maybe over time we built a well-rounded muscle around it that then didn't get injured as much. But it was really for injury avoidance and survival. And through that, I think we honed some pretty good skills. We had 40 people make Olympic trials, or 35 people make Olympic trials from Cincinnati. Mary T was in the lane next to me. We had 6 people on the Olympic team from one team. And, you know, you'd do something and you look over and Mary T would break the American record in practice, and you would immediately know that you're just a schlub again. It didn't matter what you did. She was so phenomenal. So from a technical perspective, I love all my coaches. I still do. I don't remember anybody telling me I should do something different. So we did very little technique work. It's just you need to keep going.
That's interesting. Like you said, the volume, and then modifying your technique within, you know, the training modules and things like that. I think, you know, nowadays no one is modifying their technique. It's very you know, individualized and very race specific and specific as possible, right? So like you said, that's very interesting, and I think I'm intrigued to know how many people got injured back then due to the volume. So it's easy to kind of say, okay, well, worked for Glenn. He built up the balances, and it all worked out there. But I'm sure there was a pretty high rate of there.
So all I can tell you is that the 35 or 40 swimmers that were in the national group, no one missed a single practice at all, ever.
That's crazy.
The one injury that I remember, this is a woman that probably could have made the Olympic team that year, is a woman named Nancy Nemeth. And no one has ever heard of her because she was in a car accident about 6 weeks before Olympic trials. Okay. Wow. So, but that was the only injury I can remember from back then. Now, there may be other people that say, are you kidding me? We were all injured. But all I know is, you know, nobody missed practice ever.
We were all injured, or, you know, they got injured before they got to that group, right? Like you said, that was the Marlins, and they're still a great team for those that aren't familiar. But I mean, back then with Mary T and everyone, I mean, they were the who's who. I'm sure you could elaborate on that, but we'll just leave it there. Brian, what do you have to say?
Well, I can definitely actually. So I think Swim Slam covered recently Dressel talking about 3 different freestyles, and I for sure had survival freestyle that was happening, and some even for a sprint program that did some distance stuff. I can't imagine what life in Florida would have been like, but yeah. So I mean, I guess like what is it that was unique about the culture there that everybody was so bought in? Was that a product of the coaching? Was it a product of some sort of camaraderie that you all had? Talk about
that. We were very tight, and we still are. You know, we still are very tight. You know, I can't speak to exactly what they said. I know that even back in those days, 79 and 80, Denny and Frank would bring in sports psychologists. And I specifically remember one lesson that we learned about pain. That the short message on this is that you have to look at pain like money. If you get some money, you want more of it, and so you the more money you get, the more of it you want. But you have to think of pain like that. If you attack pain and you think of it as a being, and you attack it and attack it and attack it, you'll never get enough. And so that's basically how we were taught that. So whether we were indoctrinated or what, I don't know. I just remember this guy coming in, maybe they hypnotized us or something, but you would go into practice, and everybody's been there. You're in the middle of a really hard practice, 10-200s or something, and the deeper you get into it, the meaner you get, the faster you go. And then you go into a race, and at the third turn, you start to feel a little pain, and you go, uh-oh. No, you can't say uh-oh. You have to say, okay, here it comes. Let's go get it. And it's all in how you think about it. Pain is good or pain is bad. And we were all taught pain is good. So the good pain, not the injury pain.
There you go. And, when we're working with swimmers, I know Justin and I, when we're talking with these kids and, all the way ranging up to Olympic level athletes, it's just pain is just a sensation. There's no pain indicators in the body. It's just sensation. So if you get more sensation, that should be a positive feedback because you're working harder for yourself. Right. That's how we try to kind of mold it. Because once again, it's trying to make it more of a positive reinforcement than fear avoidance or pain avoidance.
Yeah.
So I have to say that my experience has been much in that vein, except for so in the theory of breath holding. So as a sprinter, you're trying to, I guess swimming's unique in itself in the hypoxic nature of the sport. That's one of the hardest things it is for me to teach non-swimmers, triathletes, etc., about how to be good at swimming, is incorporating the breath and how to meter your breath. Well, one of the things is elites, as you go toward the elite state of swimming, you're practicing a lot of hypoxic work. I mean, I think that it's good that we're not teaching this to kids as much at a young age. And I can tell you that my experience has been later that I definitely learned to accept the signals that my body was giving to me to get up and take a breath, to just accept those as those pain signals and what have you as, okay, well, this is just making me better. And it's all in my head. And then I had one day that I took it too far.
Yeah.
And I did a 100 long course with my buddy George Bavell, who we've had on the podcast, and it got a little out of hand. And I went 100 meters long course with paddles and fins and didn't make it.
Yeah.
And that for me changed everything, because at that moment I went, oh, I'm not invincible.
Yeah.
But I think that, maybe that was being a little obsessed with it, taking it a little too far to go, you know what, it's all in my head. It's all in my head. I can do this. And I think that actually is a really powerful mentality to have when you're talking about being able to deal with pain, to be able to deal with adversity, to not focus on the negative and always just let things slide off of your shoulder. I mean, a guy that I swam with, Eugene Godso, who's at Stanford, used to tell me that Stanford Cal, swimming programs outside in Northern California. It's nice, but it's still cold. And they would swim all their meets outside and cold.
Yeah.
Well, you still got to get up and swim fast. And so he said that what they would do is just do some mental training to accept the fact that it's cold outside. But if you don't think about you're being cold, you're not as cold. And so They got really good at standing outside in the cold weather, shirtless in a Speedo, not thinking about the cold. And I think that mental toughness is maybe one of the most important aspects of getting far in the sport. Yes, I do believe that talent is a thing, but mental toughness can take you very, very far and turn some would-be average athletes into some really great ones.
I agree.
Definitely. So I think we're going to change directions into a little technique talk, and we could go on for this for, probably hours and hours. But Glenn, obviously you were a great breaststroker as Luke got into. You're filming great breaststrokers and great swimmers here. Maybe talk about how you have seen breaststroke change over the years and where you think there's still room to grow and improve.
Well, obviously it's becoming more of a front end sort of stroke. The kick is much different than the way it used to be. As Joseph Naj said a while back, the only thing that really stands in the way of breaststroke is the kick, and it's that recovery. So the thing that has really changed, obviously, is how delayed the kick is. We used to kick the hands forward. So and now if the hands aren't already there by the time you kick, you're done. The line for young kids, getting into the line, and then the ease of the outward sweep to make sure that you're not putting too much effort into the outward sweep and letting the hands get there and then getting up on the elbows and really, pushing yourself forward, letting the legs come up to a certain point, not too far. But, every time I say that, then I go back and look at the Amanda Beard video and her, her body is just like that. But her kick is so effective. And so there again is that thing where you've got Adam Peaty and these great swimmers that have a very small kick. Well, you've got to figure out what's working for that athlete. But timing is hugely different. The size of the kick is generally much different, and then the depth of the line is much different. So it's been quite a big change. But I try to get in the water and experience the things that I'm trying to teach. And so I can't imagine doing it any other way than the way it's done right now. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to know if you think athletes can still get more of an undulation or dolphin kick motion within it. When I'm watching it, like you said, Petey, his feet are narrow. That's where things are going with tempo, driving speed. And my next thought is if they can add some more undulation, it should allow a little more of a hole effect so they're able to ride the waves even more. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. And the idea that Nort Thornton spoke of it years ago about getting over on top of the wave and surfing it forward. So you're shooting from the back. You're not trying to push the arms forward. You're throwing everything that you have into that hole. And it will continue to evolve to that. It's scary to think of where breaststroke can go, because then it makes us look even worse from the times that we went so long ago. But the way that the body works as a mechanism together will continue to evolve the sport, and the undulation and the flow of that will continue to I think become more and more important. So which goes back to the first thing you start teaching young kids is underwater dolphins, and because it's going to tie into so much.
Guys, I just want to add one comment. I have had to move locations. A couple of weeks ago, we had Milorad Kapik on. And there was a time that Milo and Brian were talking about butterfly technique. Glenn, how many swimmers have gone under 23 seconds long course on 50 fly? A handful, right? Like 5 of them. And the two of them were on at the same time talking about technique. And it was gold. Talking about butterfly technique, talking about how to get it forward. And it was, to me, that was gold as a swimming nerd. I think it's for those who are listening right now, we got Dr. John Mullen and Glenn Mills on. I mean, these are the foremost, to me, experts or leaders in technique and swimming. So I'm really appreciating it you talking, and I could listen to you guys for hours. And I hope that, this continues. So I wish I could talk for hours, but we're going to segue on to a new segment. And John or Brian, you want to jump into a new segment now? Oh, Justin, you have a question. Sorry.
Yeah, Glenn, you were talking about all these technical changes throughout the years, and this is very hypothetical, but with the information you know now, and then throwing that technique back into your swimming way back in the day, do you think that would have made a big change in your swimming career? Because you did mention that you try to get in the pool now and try to experiment with that. Would that be a change, or it is what it is sort of kind of deal?
I mean, we all could have been faster. But we could have been faster if we knew what nutrition was. We had a conversation last night about our training table was I ate 5 boxes of Count Chocula a week. That was the big thing. So we had one of the strength coaches was over last night. We were doing a little work, and we were talking about the training schedule. Think about this: 5.5 to 6 hours a day. There was not one water bottle on the deck.
Yeah,
not one.
Yeah.
So we never had water. There was no talk of nutrition. We never stretched. We had a little weight room at the end of the pool and pull-up bars. And so this is go watch the original Rocky movie, and then you see what we trained like. So
funny story.
Exactly.
One of my club coaches, Tony, I think he told us the story where in the morning, every morning, they would just drink like Coca-Cola as their version of caffeine, basically, way back in the day. And I'm just blown away about that in particular.
Glenn, if Popov swam today, what would he go in his 50? If Popov swam, given all the conditions, nutrition and diet and sleep and recovery and everything, and his suits and his goggles and his cap, where would he be at? You think? What percent? I mean,
it's so hard to say because he would have to get stronger. I think he's got so long. He would have to get stronger, And would that limit his flexibility?
Yeah.
Was he perfect the way he was for what he was?
Yes.
Seeing everybody in the suits and him in his little bikini brief up there is just like a testament to saying, yeah, I'm still going to do it my way. But obviously one of the most beautiful strokes ever. But every time you change something, if you get a little bigger, now you have more mass to go through the water. So you have to think about from physics, from mathematics, every time you change, you make something better, there's going to be another side to it that may take away from what you tried to improve on. It's for guys my size, 5'10", 160. It's like a needle going through the water. There's no mass. So, you don't create a lot of resistance. So don't try to add to it. If you just get bigger and stronger, it could offset those sorts of things. You just need to get in better shape. So there's no telling, what he could have been. But yeah, with a suit on, just put a suit on him and imagine that.
No,
so yeah, he was phenomenal.
Or avoid watermelon vendors. If you avoid a watermelon vendor, you guys know what happened to Popov and the watermelon vendor? He got stabbed.
No.
And he's still
yeah.
years later. Glenn, last question, and then we got a game. I remember Popov's. So Turetsky had a video guy, and Turetsky's video guy came to McGill in the mid-90s and it took a whole day to set up his video equipment. He laid down tracks along the pool. He had, it must have been like $5,000 in equipment just to film up coming along and to analyze it. You're doing that in minutes, and you're getting real-time response. You're getting great analysis on it. Just very quickly, talk about the excitement you see in video, where it's going, how it's helping. Just very, very quickly. Just a nod to GoSwim TV and where you want to take it for the next 10 years. Just very quickly and then move to the game. Yeah. Yeah,
it needs to be commoditized. And that's what we've tried to do. Everybody should have a camera in their hand. Everybody's got an iPhone or an Android. You just got to film the swimmers. And what we've built is Deck Shots is the, you film the swimmer, you tap their name, tap the stroke, and it sends it to them. And so the whole goal behind that is that for a coach to film a swimmer, talk to the swimmer, send it to them, you don't have to do the whole evaluation on the back end.
Right.
You're going to see them tomorrow. And the goal is that when you send the swimmer a video, they self-analyze. If the swimmer can know what's right and wrong because you've sent them so many videos that takes you 10 seconds to do in the middle of practice, the swimmer will know what's right and wrong. They become more knowledgeable. They understand how to fix things, what's good, what's bad. They'll look in the lane next to them and they'll say, hey, you're doing this, you're doing this. You create 1,000 coaches. Some of the interesting technology is lane vision, which just came out. The idea that you can walk down the pool. I was involved in it for about a year. It will evolve as well. You walk down with your iPhone. It gives you stroke rate, cadence, same thing, cadence, but speed, breakout, it's like 10 points that it gives you. It's right on the borderline that you still have to have some interaction with it, but it's going to get better. And so those people that are data crazy, then they can get it. But for me, it's just send the swimmers something that they can understand and they can see and talk to them about it. You don't have to go crazy with it. Just film them.
Instantaneous feedback. There's so many inventions we think of all the time. Brian and I talk about what if we could see ourselves and keep ourselves in the center of the lane swimming backstroke. What if we can have like a Strava of swimming where we get in cadence, like you said, and direct analysis on your swim you just did, what that was like. There's so much tech that we can put into the sport. Sensors, so that when you touch the wall, it's a sensor base. It's not a pad, it's a sensor. They have it in soccer. Go ahead.
So right outside, I just finished the landscaping and everything.
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah, my wife told me she wants that yard. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, Marissa Watts was
great.
Software wants
it. Was 6 months of mud. I dug the hole.
Oh, wow.
But if you see this pool where the technology is going, there's an app. I have probably 5-6 people a day come in to train here that don't have access to water. We help them write their practices in the app, and then I sit in here while they're working out. Okay, so it's social distancing, and just make sure that the pool's running and nobody's drowning. I can look out there and see it. I do teach in it, but obviously things are slowed down a lot right now. But think about it. You can program your entire practice into that pool. It goes fast, it goes slow, it stops, and so everything is automated. Eventually, you're going to be able to share practices with people, write practices from a distance, and then it will get into the biometrics of how fast, how much pressure are you putting, because it's going to be different than regular water because the water's moving. Mm-hmm. So, it's a ton. But I see a lot of this stuff. The flume was $3 million. Yeah, this was expensive, but at the same time, this is my business. So we tried to make it look as nice as possible. But it's phenomenal what I can do. I could turn the pool on right now. Rachel's sitting out there. I could scare the what out of her. Just turn it on as fast as it'll go. So
wasn't the water moving in the 53 final at 2013 World Championships? Sorry, remember that race?
Which one?
The 53 final, wasn't the water moving in the outer lanes? And they said that was the fastest 53 final of World Champs.
Yeah.
Sorry,
We're talking about the IU study where they found the currents in lanes 6, 7, and 8 because everyone was getting medals out of those lanes.
Yeah.
All right, John. Brian, take it off. What's next?
All right, Glenn, we just got some rapid fire questions for you. First thing that comes to mind, there's 10 questions, and we might even throw in a bonus one. Are you ready?
Oh, great. Okay.
All right. What's the hardest race in swimming?
200 breaststroke.
Why? That's our first one, I think.
We said swimming, not torture.
I think that's our first 100 breast.
Latex, silicone, or no cap?
Silicone. They didn't have silicone when I swam, though. So
yeah. In your prime, and you can't say Count Chocula, what was your go-to pre-race meal?
Pepperoni pizza.
Oh, God.
All right. Name a rule change that has improved the sport.
No, not touching the wall on backstroke for a flip turn.
Oh, yeah, good one. Name one rule change that you wish would go back to the way it was.
The way it was? Oh gosh, I don't know of any. Okay, no dolphin kicks on underwater breaststroke. It can be controlled, people. It can be controlled.
Underwater videos. I don't know why FINA won't accept it. Continue.
Yeah.
Can't change the rules for people. Did you get free Pepsi with the Cincinnati Pepsi Marlins?
Not at all. It was a local bottler. We did not get anything.
What the hell? Yeah, amateurs.
Yeah.
Who's a fast swimmer that you filmed that surprisingly had poor technique underwater?
It's Glenn Mills.
No.
Cop out.
There's no way. I still am friends with all of these people.
Say it, Glenn. Come on, say it.
All right, I'm gonna call Holzer's thumb entry because I know her. So
okay,
all right.
Okay, there you go.
All right, if you could start an ISL franchise, what would you call it?
Oh goodness. Well, Rachel coaches for the Tritons, so I'd call them the Pitchforks. just go head to head with them.
I thought you were going to say the Asterisk off of our initial conversation.
Oh yeah, there you go.
How many years till someone goes under 2 minutes in the 2 breast long course?
20.
That's good. It took 40 to get the 12 seconds from 2016 to.
Yeah, but they keep changing the rules for them to cheat. Pretty soon you'll have a motor tied to your back. So.
It's all going to be because of cheating. I love it. All right. If you could impart one technique tip to all age groupers, what would it be? Extension.
Get long.
I like it. All right, we're going to bonus one for the Ohio folks. What's your favorite pool to swim in Ohio?
I would say Cleveland State University. It's fast, it's deep, great gutters, beautiful pool.
Nice, good job. Thanks. This one.
Oh, throw me under the bus with all my friends. Nice.
Hey, we're all friends. You can tell us afterwards what color medal you would have gotten.
Yeah.
Glenn, you swam 10K a day in the breaststroke group, which is insane. But what was the best part of practice? Was it like a get-out swim? Was it the showers, or was it social kick?
There was no such thing as social kick when we swam. It was only purposeful. So generally it was the I remember the lights coming on for a get out swim, and you just hang your head, and hope nobody would pick you. So it would have to be just you got out of the pool, you went into the showers, and you just shared some time with your friends. That you just did something hardly anybody on the planet could do.
You guys are animals, man. You guys are animals.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Respect.
All right.
Pleasure to have
Well,
you.
yeah, it was a pleasure having you. Pleasure having an Olympian, a world championship member, NCAA champion, and one of the people I looked up to in video and swimming. So kudos, thanks for joining us, and look forward to you next time. We got Amy Bilquist on the show next time. We look forward to speaking to her. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
Bye.